Welcome to Public Health on Call, a podcast from the Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health, where we bring evidence, experience, and perspective to make sense of today's leading health challenges. If you have questions or ideas for us, please send an email to publichealthquestion@jhu.edu. That's publichealthquestion@jhu.edu for future podcast episodes.
This is Lindsay Smith-Rogers, producer of Public Health on Call. Today, TikTok, Instagram, and nutrition. Sasha Chopkin is a correspondent with The Examination, a new media outlet investigating issues in global public health. He joins Dr. Josh Sharfstein to talk about dietitians who are also social media influencers. Spoiler alert, buyer beware. Let's listen.
Sasha Chopkin, thank you so much for joining me on Public Health on Call to talk about this investigation that you led for The Examination. But before we talk about the investigation, what's The Examination?
We are a new investigative newsroom that covers global public health. We look into preventable health threats and who and what are responsible for them. And we do that by collaborating with news outlets around the world.
And how many journalists are involved?
As of now, we have about 12 people on staff. We are just starting and we're growing.
And where can people find The Examination?
You can go to theexamination.org and you'll see all our stories.
Now, some of them will appear in other news outlets, like you said, they're collaborations. And you recently wrote a story with the Washington Post. That's the investigation I want to talk about today. Tell me about it.
So our story with the Post looked into dietitians and what they were posting on social media. We found that many dietitians with big followings on TikTok and Instagram are being paid by the food industry to promote products or share messages. The most concerning thing we found is that in many cases, those messages go against recommendations from public health authorities or scientific research. And in a number of cases, they're not clearly disclosing who sponsored those messages.
So people may be scrolling through Instagram, watching TikToks, perhaps somewhat mindlessly, and then they're coming across dietitians who are giving advice, not fully disclosing that they may be paid by food companies.
Exactly. In a number of the cases we found, they disclosed that these were sponsored messages, but not who was paying for them, which also raised a lot of questions among viewers.
All right, let's turn to the examples. Tell me about this first one that you brought.
Who advises not to use non-sugar sweeteners for weight control in newly released guidelines? That was a bold move, who. First red flag, their recommendation is based on evidence of low certainty, and it's considered conditional. In other words, they didn't consider other factors like environment, genes, lifestyle, that very much can affect someone's weight. And none of these studies showed that it was specifically the sweeteners that cause a weight gain. But they love a good clickbait. Oh yeah, and they suggest not using sweeteners to reduce the risk of non-communicable diseases. Based off their very low certainty evidence, coming from prospective observational studies, which by nature cannot determine causation. I just find it funny how they forgot to add randomized control studies suggesting the opposite of the recommendation, including their own WHO meta-analysis from 2022. They're putting so much energy into these guidelines just to recommend replacing free sugars with naturally occurring sugars. And don't get me wrong, I totally support increasing your fruit intake and adding more whole foods into your diet. But why discourage people to use non-sugar sweeteners when, one, it's considered safe, and two, it's actually helping people reduce their added sugar intake? This is going to cause confusion and might cause some people to lose hope and say, screw it, I'm going back to added sugar. If WHO really wants to implement new policies, maybe they should focus on ways to make fruits and vegetables more accessible and affordable rather than just using clickbait based on low quality science.
So this message is from Steph Grasso. She's one of the most popular dietitians on social media with more than 2 million followers on TikTok. And in this message, she is talking about aspartame and artificial sweeteners. The World Health Organization came out with 2 reports this year, one which recommended against using artificial sweeteners for weight loss and for diabetes management, and another that found that aspartame was a possible carcinogen. After these reports came out, we started seeing a number of videos like this one from Steph Grasso coming out that had the hashtag safety of aspartame next to the post, in which registered dietitians would be very strongly dismissing the WHO's findings in terms like you saw here, where she calls it clickbait and says that people really should not be taking their warnings seriously. People trust social media influencers who they follow more than they would trust someone they see on an ad on television. There's actually something that's called a parasocial relationship that develops where people actually feel like they know some of the people that they follow most closely online on social media.
So in this case, she's leveraging that to throw shade at the World Health Organization. What does she disclose about where she is getting funding?
The message does have hashtag ad, and it's also flagged as a paid partnership. So she's making clear that someone's paying her, but what she's not saying is who that is. In her case, and in a number of other dietitians who used this hashtag safety of aspartame marker, people wondered, were they being paid by the WHO, by the FDA, by the soda industry? Who? Now, it turns out that they were actually being paid by American Beverage, which is a trade group for the soda industry that represents Coke and Pepsi and a number of other leading soda companies. And they were the ones who put out this hashtag safety of aspartame campaign in order to dispel concerns about a product that is really essential to their business model.
Interesting. If they had said hashtag paid for by the soda industry, maybe it would have not been as convincing.
Exactly. One of the things the Federal Trade Commission, which is the agency that oversees advertising, looks for is whether ads have something that's called an unexpected material connection. And that means the person who's giving the endorsement has a connection to the sponsor that's not being clearly revealed and that would affect people's opinion of how credible that message is. And experts we talked to said to us basically, well, would you expect a dietitian to be working with the soda industry? And if the answer is no, then that's the kind of message that really would raise concerns for whether it's following the guidelines on proper advertising.
Let's go to your second example.
So you ate all the Easter chocolate. Now what? As a registered dietitian, I am here to tell you absolutely nothing. Yep, it's as simple as that. You don't need to make up for it. You don't need to burn it off. Definitely don't guilt yourself. Food is not just fuel, but nourishment for our souls. And I promise you, those memories are worth it.
So this is a message from Lindsay Plescott, and she's a dietitian who is sponsored by the Canadian Sugar Institute, a trade group that's funded by sugar producers. She's giving a message here that we found in a lot of their sponsored posts, which is denying yourself sugar will only make you crave it more. So you may as well just eat it when you want it. In another one of her posts, which is just visual, so we can't play it for you, she actually mocks the idea that people should reduce sugar intake. It says the best ways to cut sugar are with a knife, with my hands, and even with my teeth. These are the kinds of messages she's putting out there, sponsored by sugar producers.
And what's disclosed in the messages themselves?
These messages have a tag for the Canadian Sugar Institute. I believe there was one of her posts where it didn't have it initially and she added it after we contacted her. But mostly these are tagged as coming from the Canadian Sugar Institute. I think the real question that these posts raise are, is this health information that is consistent with any kind of scientific understanding of the health effects of sugar? And what is a dietitian doing giving this kind of advice to the public? These dietitians, both Steph Grasso and Lindsay Plescott and many others, say they have full control over their messages, that they share only ideas that they believe in already and would disseminate on their own, regardless of whether they were being paid. But the fact is, these messages that we're seeing are ones they were paid to make.
Do you have any sense of whether the professional associations of dietitians are paying attention to this?
Well, we spoke with the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics, and we interviewed their president, Lori Wright. She said that this is a situation that they're certainly monitoring and doing their best to make sure that dietitians know the rules for disclosure and for proper conduct on social media. She also said that they're not in a position to monitor the social media behavior of all their members. And so she kind of felt like, aside from putting out the rules, making clear what the dietitian's code of ethics and their recommendations were, she suggested that there wasn't that much the academy could do to police this kind of behavior.
Interesting. Let's go to the third example.
Okay, so I'm responding to this comment with a video because in literally the last 10 minutes, I have been asked about different greens powders. I could honestly cry making this video. You'll never catch me promoting a greens powder because most of them have the proprietary blend in there, which is basically a way of the companies telling you that you don't really know how much of each ingredient is in there. But I wish I didn't have this dietitian license sometime, and I wish I could just blindly promote those because there is a check behind those powders. I'll show you a couple things that I could afford if I had taken the deals that were offered to me from greens powders companies. All of my friends are getting married. I've been looking into buying a nice little designer bag for myself just so I have a nice bag that I can bring to weddings. I could afford, with the money offered to me from greens powders, not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, not 5, not 6, not 7, 8 of these little bags that I've been wanting if I took those deals. I could get 20 pairs of these Apple AirPod Maxes. I could be like Oprah with my friends. One for you, one for you, one for you. If I had taken the deals from the greens companies, this is the kitchen that I would be working in right now. This is the kitchen that I'm working with right now. I'm reorganizing it. Also, Penny's sleeping, so I can't unpack that. And this is not me saying, oh, I can totally afford to turn down money like that. I can't. But there is a code of ethics with this dietitian license, and I just can't do it. But this is just me showing you there is money behind those greens powders that are being marketed to you.
This video is from Monica D'Agostino. She has more than 740,000 followers on TikTok. She's talking here about greens powders, which are a popular supplement, usually made with leafy greens. Manufacturers boast of all kinds of health benefits, but so far these haven't really been proven. And she talks about how the dietitian's code of ethics, which requires providing accurate and evidence-based information, prevents her from pitching these greens powders to her followers. And she jokingly regrets that she's not able to do these ads that they want her to make because then she could buy handbags for all her friends and Apple EarPods and be Oprah for her buddies. This is a lighthearted post, but one where a dietitian is talking to you directly about this huge financial incentive that they're seeing to pitch questionable products.
So she's saying in this post that she won't do it. She won't do something she thinks is unethical, even despite the money that they're offering her to pitch products like this.
Exactly. She's talking about how she's doing the right thing here, but she's using that to make the point that there's a lot of temptation for dietitians to do what might not be the right thing and to go out and pitch these powders that don't really have scientific backing of their benefits.
And, I was trying to do the math, and it seemed like we're talking about at least thousands of dollars here for one influencer.
Yeah, in her video, we added it up and it comes to about $11,000 that she's saying she turned down. Generally, dietitians wouldn't talk about how much they were paid for their posts, but we were told that it was usually several $1,000s per video, and it could be tens of thousands for people with really big followings.
So with these examples and others, you really uncovered a world that is just emerging, and it seems like maybe the rules haven't quite caught up.
Yeah, a lot of people describe this as a Wild West. It's this online marketplace that has grown exponentially in size. The FTC, the agency that polices it, has a fraction of the staff that it needs to be able to review all these materials. We actually spoke to David Vladeck, who is the former head of the Bureau of Consumer Protection at the FTC, and he said that nobody believes the agency has enough resources to oversee this market. So sometimes they conduct sweeps to try to deter the most egregious behavior, but it's basically putting their finger in the dike. And a whole lot of shady stuff is still managing to get through.
In the meantime, if you see something on Instagram, on TikTok, or perhaps other social media that just seems to be too good to be true from go ahead and eat it as a perspective, you might want to pause.
Absolutely. I think one of the big takeaways from our investigation is that people should apply some healthy skepticism to the messages they're getting on TikTok and Instagram. There are very specific things you could look for. If you see hashtag ad, hashtag sponsored, or a paid partnership tag, that's something that may not be visible in the video itself, but you can find it in the caption next to the video, and it will confirm that it's essentially a commercial. But sometimes dietitians weren't even doing that. So there really is a level of skepticism that you should be applying when you're on social media.
Well, Sasha Chavkin, thank you so much for coming to explain that to us. And also good luck with the examination.
Thank you, Josh.
Public Health on Call is a podcast from the Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health, produced by Joshua Sharfstein, Lindsay Smith-Rogers, and Stephanie Desmond. Audio production by J.B. Arbogast, Holly Cardinale, Philip Porter, Spencer Greer, and Matthew Martin, with support from Chip Hickey. Distribution by Nick Moran. Production support from Catherine Ricardo. Social media run by Grace Fernandez and Shian Briscoe. If you have questions or ideas for us, please send an email to publichealthquestion@jhu.edu. That's publichealthquestion@jhu.edu for future podcast episodes. Thank you for listening.